Alright, Alan Wake 2 trailer. Okay.
It's for us.
Alright. Is that Max Payne? Oh man, I love it when a thing from a thing I like crosses over with another thing I like. But seriously, it is kind of cool when you're just playing a game and a guy from another game just walks in.
Linda, how you doing? You're looking good, real good.
You should know better than to write me off.
Glad you haven't gone soft since Bolivia.
Why does Sam Fisher keep showing up in so many non-Splinter Cell games? Now there is an iceberg, if you will, of connected universes. At the top is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a movie universe so connected that it cannot go 5 seconds without telling you it's in the same universe as something else.
What dialect?
Wakanada, Wakanda.
Yeah, I could say I'm Captain America, but it doesn't put wings on my head.
This says Avengers.
You don't like Avengers? I got Avengers.
So now that Captain Rogers and Iron Man are both gone, who do you think's gonna lead the Avengers?
Will you shut up, man?
Listen.
Next would be the Remedyverse, Max Payne, Control, Quantum Break, and Alan Wake. The next one down would be the loosely connected game universes like the Ubisoft one. This includes games like The Division, Splinter Cell, Far Cry, Rainbow Six Siege, Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and Ghost Recon. And if you want to get weird, we've got the Valve universe, which includes Half-Life and Portal, video games that are actually video games in the Left 4 Dead universe alongside Team Fortress 2. Back to the Left 4 Dead universe presumably takes place in the Payday universe, which also takes place in the John Wick universe, which also takes place in the same universe as Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Okay, now I know that that last universe could be torn to shreds in terms of canonicity in seconds, but what if I told you that there is another universe? One so far down in the connected by threads iceberg, and one so obscure that it's actually illegal. Trust me, it's real, because that universe is the System Shock universe, and it is really, really far down. So I'm having a blast playing the System Shock remake right now, and usually when I get into a game, I just turn into a big lore rat, just scurrying around and consuming all the juicy pieces of lore, bookmarking the Wikipedia page and just sucking all the story out of it until I find it boring. And as I've been doing my virtual lore feeding session recently, I've come across some interesting connections in the games. Connections I'd like to share with you. No, need to share with you. My head is going to explode. I'm running out of space. I love shock games, specifically Bioshock games. I mean, I love them no more than the other guy. I mean, hold on, let me just move this stuff out of the way. As I was saying, I don't like them any more than the other guy. I've just, I enjoy them. There might be other people that enjoy them out there that more than me, it's just, this isn't an art book or anything. It's just, okay, I absolutely love going to a place and being yelled at by a guy on the radio for 10 hours. It is a great gameplay experience.
Offers you nothing but ashes!
Your moment has come, old friend. I stand before you, the trusted partner who put a knife in your back. Do not disappoint me.
You broke the spell!
But yeah, I have really good memories of Bioshock and to a lesser extent System Shock. Like, they play almost the same, but it's clear that System Shock came out before Bioshock. But either way, I still enjoyed both, and I always wondered if they might be in the same universe. I mean, System Shock, Bioshock, correlation perhaps? Well, you've seen the title of the video and presumably the thumbnail, so the answer is yes. Yes, they are connected. So to start at base camp, we're going to start with System Shock 1, and you cannot talk about System Shock at all without mentioning Shodan. In the game, Shodan is Citadel Station's AI manager, and in the System Shock remake, we can see she's been around since 2068. Now in System Shock 1, we find out that she was created by a programmer called Morris Brockale. Or was she? Was Morris wholly responsible for Shodan's creation, or did he build off something? Well, to answer that, we're going to have to turn back the clocks in the universe about 118 years and take a trip beneath the waves of the northern Atlantic Ocean to a little place you might know called Rapture. Now, if you're interested in video games in any degree, I'm very certain you know about the city of Rapture from the Bioshock games, but if you need a quick history lesson, here's the gist. Rapture was founded in 1947 by billionaire industrialist Andrew Ryan, who was fed up with the big governments of the world trying to control everything he did. So in secret, Ryan had Rapture constructed and invited some of the greatest like-minded minds in the world down to populate the city, an event that would be remembered even decades later as a mass disappearance of the world's best and brightest. And one of these minds was that of Charles Milton Porter, a gifted mathematician and codebreaker who had lost his wife Pearl during the London Blitz in World War II. Once in Rapture, Porter founded Rapture Central Computing and began working on a data processor that could essentially run Rapture automatically, the world's first AI. With the help of his co-worker and friend Reed Wall, eventually this AI created and began running Rapture, making sure the air was being filtered, the trains continued running, the big daddies do maintenance. This AI was a big reason why Rapture was even still standing by the time Bioshock 1 and, more importantly, 2 took place. And while this AI was commonly called the Thinker, it did have another name, Rodin. Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network. Now, taking a step back from that and looking at Rapture as a whole, it wasn't doing too well by 1958. The working class was dissatisfied that they did the most to keep Rapture running, all the while the people who were benefiting couldn't seem to care less about them. Eventually, a civil war broke out and leaving the city in ruins. It was about this time that Reed Wall had Porter arrested for treason.
Rapture is at war, Porter. And you have cast your lot with the enemy. Your concerned associates provided me with a recording of your own voice, swearing loyalty to Fontaine and his gangsters. Evidence of treason. My men are already on their way.
See, he wasn't happy that Porter was trying to train the Thinker to emulate his dead wife, and he thought that he was wasting the machine's potential. So using the Thinky, he had it produce an audio tape of Porter, which was incriminating enough to get Porter arrested by Ryan's secret police and sent to Persephone, Rapture's secret prison for political enemies of Ryan. Here, Porter was turned into a big daddy and stayed that way until 1968, when the events of Bioshock 2's Minerva's Den DLC takes place. Now, I'm not going to go through all that happens in Minerva's Den just because it's not exactly relevant, but we will go through what is relevant to the wider universe. So here's the important stuff. Through the DLC, your major objective is to get the Thinker's source code out of Rapture, and you're playing as a big daddy called Subject Sigma, who's actually Charles Milton Porter. And by the end of the DLC, it's revealed that the Thinker has been impersonating Porter throughout the entire game to carry out the last order Porter gave to it.
Well, Thinker, Ryan's secret police are on their way. They cooked up some kind of evidence against me. Treason, they say. I've heard what happens to folks who get disappeared, come back as one of those metal daddies. So, I'm leaving you with something to cogitate on in my absence. Inputting Rapture Departure Protocol. Figure a way to get yourself out of this city, Thinker. You've got to live on, no matter what happens to me. You'll find a way.
Anyway, the DLC ends with Porter and Dr. Tenenbaum escaping to the surface, and in the final cutscene we can see Tenenbaum was successfully able to reverse Porter's big daddyification. So after this we lose the System Shock connection in this era for about 26 in-universe years before we come into our next game, also in the Shock universe, called Gone Home. Now, Gone Home takes place in 1994 and follows a character named Caitlin after she's returned home from a year in Europe. However, entering her childhood home, she finds that the place is completely deserted. Now, if you're a fan of interactive story games, I would say go play Gone Home, because I'm not really going to go into it. I'm just here for the System Shock references, but it is a really great emotional game. And honestly, I'm not sure if the price tag justifies what you get in the game. It's very short, but if you're looking for a great story with really well written characters, I'd say go for it. And hey, since it's Pride Month, there's no better time to play it. But since we're just dropping in for our Shock connections, I'll make this brief and won't get into the story. So in the game, the first clue we have that we're in the Shock universe is the airplane tag on Caitlin's bag. This airline is actually the same one that owned the plane that Jack downed in Bioshock 1, and as you can see, they don't charter flights over Rapture anymore. I wonder why. Apart from that, there's only one other Shock reference, which is a video game cartridge. Now at first glance, this is all rather ordinary until you remember that Spitfire in this universe was actually created as the first video game in Rapture, and in Minerva's Den you can find and play an early version of it. But also to add to this, if you look at the logo of the company that made the game, it's listed as CMP Interactive. And in this universe, there's only one CMP we know.
Who's there?
Yo, this is Charles Milton Porter. Charles Milton.
Again?
Yo, this is Charles Milton Porter.
So it stands to reason that after being Big Daddy-ified, Porter went and started a new tech company, possibly with or without the Thinker. But we'll get back to that in a second, because another game in this universe is actually Firewatch. Now I'll just make this quick because it really doesn't tell us much about the world, but in Gone Home, Caitlin's father writes a ton of science fiction books based around the assassination of JFK, and in Firewatch you can find one of these books, making it an official part of the universe too. Anyway, back with Porter and the Thinker, we enter a bit of a grey zone. By 1994, Gone Home takes place, and I'd wager Porter is getting pretty old. And this is all theory work coming up from me, so take it as an absolute grain of salt. But one of the reasons the Thinker was pulled out of Rapture in Minerva's Den was so that it could help the rest of humanity. And honestly, I don't think Porter would have kept it hidden away, so I imagine he trained up some sort of protege, and with his protege, he continued his work on the Thinker, which although previously called Rodin, which stood for Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network, would now be known as Odin, the Operational Data Interpreter Network. Through the years, Porter would have passed on, and his protege probably would have trained up another protege, possibly being Morris Brockale. At some point between 2020 and 2068, the Tri-Optimum Corporation hires this protege and pays them to develop the Thinker's technology, and over time, the AI known as Odin would morph. Operational became hyper-optimized, Data Interpreter Network became Data Access Network, and finally, after decades of innovation, it became sentient. Yep, that's right, the Thinker, Rodin, is actually an early version of Shodan, and all of the clues are there in Minerva's Den. See, in the DLC, the Thinker impersonates both Pearl and Porter, just like Shodan impersonates Janice Polito in System Shock 2.
Welcome back, Milton.
System ending personality duplication. Subject, Charles Milton Porter.
The Polito form is dead, insect. Are you afraid? What is it you fear?
The end of your trivial existence.
And honestly, Shodan's god complex could be attributed to the fact that the Thinker used Adam to function properly. So maybe Adam affects sentient beings even if they're digital or not. Or maybe Shodan, originating from Rapture, kind of functioned like a kid growing up in a bad home. All that the Thinker saw in Rapture was something that Shodan retained. Like I said, theory work, I really don't know. Honestly, Shodan was a character written in the 1990s, so her motivations weren't super important to the story. She was just an AI with a god complex, and that was all you really needed to know. But now that we've established that ironically the AI mastermind that spends a majority of her time in space originated at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, let's look away from the past of the Shock universe and towards the future, because we have one more IP that connects to this universe, which shows up at the end of the original System Shock. After defeating Shodan, the hacker goes back to his old ways and is seen breaking into the network of a corporation called Tetracorp. This corporation is working on a prototype power armor, which appears in the game Terra Nova Strike Force Centauri, which takes place in the 24th century. And that's it. System Shock may be an old-ass game, but it is a big part of a bigger universe, and it has a ton of connections. Just for example, in Bioshock Infinite during the ending, Elizabeth shows you the Sea of Doors, which takes on the appearance of lighthouses. They represent each alternate universe, and are there so that Elizabeth can try to explain to Booker the constants and variables of there always being a man, a lighthouse, and a city. And although not included in the game, you can find some of the other lighthouses by no-clipping out of the map. There's one in the desert, another one in a snowy mountain, but most importantly, there's one that comes in the form of a space station, one that looks very much like Citadel Station. This would have been meant to drive home the man, the lighthouse, and city theme. While in the Rapture universe, the man is Jack, the lighthouse is, well, the lighthouse, and the city is Rapture. In this alternate universe, the man would have been the hacker, the lighthouse would be in Citadel Station, and the city would have also been, well, Citadel Station. But this was removed for some unspecified reason, but honestly I think I know why. It's the same reason I said that this universe earlier wasn't actually legal, and that's because the companies that own Bioshock's rights and the company that owns System Shock's rights are completely separate. But I have not been talking out of my ass, by the way. The director of Minerva's Den went on record saying that in a non-litigious way, Thinker was meant to be an early version of Shodan, but there is that word that comes up, non-litigious. See, these universes are all worlds that are very clearly linked, but none of them can actually ever say it's official because neither of them absolutely hold the keys to the properties. Clearly connected, yet not allowed to be. But honestly, in my opinion, I think it's fine. Earlier I said I enjoyed it when a character from Game A shows up in Game B, but sometimes you don't really need that. It's just cool when a universe has a flow-on effect from each other, from one title to the next, but never relies on each other to exist. Like sure, the evidence is there to support that Shodan is actually an advanced version of the Thinker, but maybe she's more based off of the Thinker's code. The point is, it doesn't really matter, because Shodan's never going to outright say that she originated in Rapture, just like Andrew Ryan is never going to say, I bet that young businessman I knew on the surface is going to start up a corporation called Tri-Optimum, and that corporation will become the biggest megacorp in the world. Tencent, you see how the System Shock remake's going really well? Well, maybe you should like release System Shock 3. You know, like how you released the trailer and then it's not out yet. Well, maybe you should release it now. Come on, like please. I'll dance for you. Come on, I'll dance.